Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Sanctuary. It's redraft season. The season is so close we can almost touch it. But don't worry, we've not forgot about you Dynasty folk. I'm back. I've got 4 must-sell players in Dynasty right now before the season starts. So we're going to kick things off. Let's start at the top. Quarterbacks. Justin Fields. Now, one of the hottest names in fantasy right now. People can't get enough of him. But he is absolutely covered in risk. And there is a chance that he just completely falls flat on his face this year. Yes, when he's been on the field and running last year, he was a phenomenal fantasy asset. He was a complete superstar. But we have yet to see him consistently pass the ball to a level that means he will be a future franchise quarterback in this league. He can't just run to be successful. We saw last year the Bears, when they handed the offense over to him in the rushing game, they won 1 game for the rest of the year. So the Bears have got 2 first-round picks next year. It is going to be a loaded class. Let's talk about some numbers. Justin Fields, he was 20th of 33 in EPA per dropback. He was 29th of 33 quarterbacks in completion percentage over expectation. And he was sacked more than any quarterback in the league. And I can hear people saying, but that's the offensive line. No, sacks are a quarterback stat, not an offensive line stat. Justin Fields is a phenomenal athlete. He is a phenomenal fantasy player when he is on the field. But there is absolutely a concern that his passing is not going to be of a level that means the Bears commit to him long term. And there is a scenario that at the end of this year, the Bears have potentially got 2 mid to high first round picks, and they decide to go, right, let's go and get Caleb Williams or Drake May or one of these superstar quarterbacks. And I just think that for me, if I was a Fields owner, I would be looking to kind of potentially divest some shares. Yes, I still want some Fields because I think when he's a fantasy player, he's going to be phenomenal. But there is absolutely a scenario where he could be out of a job in a year's time. And I don't want to be left holding the bag if that's the case. So yeah, I'm definitely looking to pivot off him, whether it's a case of I can go and tier up to one of those elite 3. I would quite happily, take a sideways step from Justin Fields. My favorite move is to go and get Trevor Lawrence. I would take Trevor Lawrence over Justin Fields straight up. But I think you can go to the market now and get probably Trevor Lawrence and maybe a second-round pick. Maybe it needs to be 2/3 for Justin Fields right now. And I know that I feel so much safer about Trevor Lawrence moving forward over the next 2-3 years as a fantasy asset than I do with Justin Fields right now. The next must-sell player, another high-priced name, another potential fantasy superstar, is Saquon Barkley. Now, obviously, he was tagged, and then the Giants gave him that little bit extra money. He's about another $1 million in his pocket in incentives. And suddenly everybody's ready to dive in and think that that's Saquon Barkley going to be a long-term asset with the Giants. To me, that's more concerning because I now think that the Giants probably aren't going to tag him again. And I'm like, do I know where Saquon Barkley's going to be at the end of this year? Do I know that he's going to be with the Giants? Is he going to be another team? I'm scared of any running back that's hitting free agency, particularly with what we've seen this offseason where teams just don't want to pay them. So, yeah, I'm scared about that free agency. The Giants were hyper efficient last year. They were a top 10 offense. They've got no receivers. I think Daniel Jones is going to take a step back from what he was last year. So I'm concerned about this offense as a whole. And also, Saquon Barkley was good last year, but he wasn't that great. Like, he was only the RB5. Let's not pretend that he had this, overall superstar season that meant that he, we need to go out and get him. He was the RB5, yet he's going as the RB4 or 5 in ADP right now and startup. So, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that we're already getting towards that. We're already on the second contract. There's potentially a free agent off season, yet he's going where he's producing, which always makes me nervous. And then the final thing is, he is a boom bust rusher. He's 30th out of 42 in success rate. We know that Saquon Barkley is not going to be a guy that consistently gets 4 or 5 yards per carry. He is a 2-3 yards a carry guy, and then will break one for 50 yards. And those are the running backs that always make me nervous because I just think that there's a chance that if they don't break that big one, they have a dud week. And yes, Saquon Barkley's receiving work helps him out massively, and it gives him that floor. But then the Giants have gone and signed about 10 different slot receivers. So are we going to see those guys eat into the potential checkdowns and short yardage work that Saquon Barkley was getting in the passing game? It's definitely within the range of outcomes. So yeah, I'm nervous about Saquon Barkley. If I'm looking to sell him, I'm needing at least a 24 first plus. I'm probably looking for a first and a second, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I think you need to be going out and having those conversations and maybe looking to tear down at the running back position. You know, I would love if I could get Ramondre Stevenson plus an asset for Saquon Barkley, because I think they're probably going to be similar in production. Ramondre Stevenson's younger. He's got that extra year of contracts. And I just think that if I can get an extra asset on top of Stevenson for a similar player, I'm very happy. The next player I'm selling, we talked about him on the redraft show as a guy we're avoiding in drafts this year, and it's DK Metcalf. Look, he had a high volume season last year. I don't think people realize that he was 11th in the league in targets. Yet, he was only the wide receiver 15 last year in points and was wide receiver 14 the year before. Yet, he's going as the wide receiver 13 in ADP. This is a guy that's not necessarily young. We're on that second contract. Plus, they've just added a target hog in JSN into the draft. I'm concerned that DK Metcalf is falling into that hype of, you know, he is being overvalued because there's some potential of him being that big-bodied outside receiver. The Calvin Johnson theory comes back again. I think he is a good, solid, mid to late wide receiver 2. But the problem is you're having to pay back-end wide receiver 1 prices. So, yeah, I'm happy to pivot off him. If you can go and get, you know, a first plus, if you can go and pivot to one of these younger receivers, you know, if you could get JSN plus, Jordan Addison plus, I'd love either of those. And then also, as a big-bodied, you know, X that we think of as a good guy in contested catches, he was below 30% catch rate on targets inside the red zone last year. That's really concerning. This is a guy that we're expecting to put up high touchdown numbers consistently because of those targets in the red zone. And he's not converting on them. So, you know, maybe the Seahawks look at it this year. They brought in Zach Charbonnet. He's a guy that I think has a nose for the end zone. He is a take what you block for him kind of back. And I think that they're going to utilize him in and around that goal line area, which could eat into the production that we see from DK Metcalf. So, yeah, I'm pivoting off DK Metcalf because of that, because I think that he was largely buoyed by that huge volume last year. And I'm not necessarily convinced that when there's 3 receivers that need to eat, plus these 2 potential backs, plus, you know, there's even someone like Noah Fant still floating around. I don't know if there's enough balls to go around to warrant the price for DK Metcalf right now. The final guy that I'm looking to sell is TJ Hockenson. Now, the volume is what buoyed TJ Hockenson last year. You look at the EPA numbers, he didn't add anything to the receiving game in terms of expected points added. He basically was just a volume hog. He didn't bring anything in. Now, do I think that he's going to be able to see the same volume? No. They added Jordan Addison in the draft. We know that Justin Jefferson's going to get his. I think that Jordan Addison is going to be Adam Thielen plus more. And I think that there's going to be a challenge for TJ Hockenson to see that 21.2% target share again. If he's in that 17 to 20%, if we see the Vikings take a step back in terms of their pass attempts, that's going to eat into TJ Hockenson's price and production. And I just don't think that we can warrant that Titan 3, Titan 4 price. I would much rather pivot off him to a Dallas Goedert, even to going back to like a Pat Freiermuth, something like that, you know, because I want that extra asset. Plus, I think he's in the same tier of those guys, but he's being priced way ahead of that right now. And then the other thing is that the Vikings were so pass heavy in the red zone. They had the second most pass attempts in the red zone last year. Now, yes, they'll probably be just as pass heavy this year, but I don't think they're going to have the same amount of pass attempts in the red zone, because I think they're going to see a reduction in terms of the number of attempts in the red zone. So, yeah, I'm concerned that TJ Hockenson won't get that volume and therefore won't put up the same numbers that he did last year. Hopefully that's, you know, those are 4 high-priced guys that I think we should be looking to pivot off. And I appreciate that's slightly contentious, but that's why it makes them good sells, because you're not necessarily looking to sell a guy that everybody in the fantasy community and dynasty community knows is an obvious sell. The best time to sell players is when you're thinking slightly outside the box. They are high priced, and therefore you can go and get hauls for them. I'm not sitting here telling you to go and sell these guys at anything. You need to go and get peak value for them. That's why they make a good sell candidate right now. I'm going to be back very soon with 5 must buys. Just thinking again, slightly outside the box, thinking not necessarily players, but more strategy, what players to go in a target at this point in the season before we hit the start of the NFL season in a couple of weeks. Well, that's it. Those are the 4 must sells. As I said, we'll be back with more. So make sure you're hitting that like, hitting that subscribe. You can even sign up as a member and get even more of mine and Tom's content coming into your earbuds over the next few weeks. We'll see you soon.